Mic. Camera. Action.
Well, you would have done pretty good there if you hadn't pulled leather. Oh, like hell I did. I ain't never touched a saddle horn in my life. Howdy with us.
Little brother Joe done went and shot up like a weed, didn't he?
Happens that way. Hey, you want to try a ride?
Hell no, I don't. I leave that to you, big brother Jess here. But say, what is the going rate these days for getting your brains beat out on saddle?
Same as always. $1 a day, beans and hay.
Hey, how long you been out?
About a year.
Doing what?
White boy picking cotton.
Go! Mom's gonna be happy to see you. Hey, Mom! Willie's home!
All right. Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue from past debut through to present day in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the focused filmography. I consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's guest is the Linklater lover and Ethan Hawke enthusiast Tony Farina. Today's film is Richard Linklater's based on a true story, The Newton Boys from 1997. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. Hello. Linklater lover.
Hello. I thought you said enthusiast. I was ready for Ethan Hawke apologist. Also true.
Nobody needs to apologize for Ethan Hawke.
He's so great, right? I am such a fan. And it's like, even in this, he just always gets the assignment. You can see this was early days with he and Linklater, like, you know, because he wasn't in
yes.
the other stuff. But now it's like, they're like, you know,
they've got like 3 films coming up together, I think.
They do, yeah. It's like they're, you know, Scorsese and De Niro. I mean, that's where they are right now, right? Yeah. So,
this must be before sunrise.
Before. So that was kind of the launching pad of their relationship, because that's when they realized Ethan and Julie could write, you know, because they aren't listed as credited writers of the first one. But everyone will tell you they wrote that first one. The 3 of them will tell you, no, those 2 wrote that. But, you know, it was an original story, and there was somebody else who was listed, and that's fine. Which is also why they every time they were nominated for an Oscar for the next 2 movies, they were nominated for adapted screenplay, because it was characters based on, and they're just like, based on us, characters that were based on us in a movie that was made by us for us. Anyway, so I saw this one, The Newton Boys, in the theater because it was an Ethan Hawke joint. And I honestly don't remember much of it from then, other than like I saw that when you brought it up before, and I was like, I've seen that. I feel very confident that I saw that, and I did. And it's, as you said offline, your solid review was The Newton Boys. It's a film.
It's a film. Yeah, I can't say I'm too surprised you didn't remember much. It's it's a lesser Linklater, let's be honest, isn't it?
I've seen that review bandied about as well.
Yeah.
It is not okay. Yes, he's got tears. This is down there with The Bad News Bears,
which is really interesting considering they're 2 of his most expensive movies.
This movie was expensive.
Yeah, so this cost $25
because of the costumes.
I guess so. Yeah, the period details, which we definitely need to talk about, because that is the best thing about this movie. But this, Bad News Bears, and School of Rock are his 3 most expensive movies.
Well, School of Rock, he's made all his money back on that because it's Broadway musical now, and the School of Rock is a real thing. Like it's now a thing. Yeah, so he's doing fine.
I think School of Rock was 35, I read, and then this and Bad News Bears are both 27, not 25. Sorry, so School of Rock was 35.
Wow, and that's
so interesting that 2 of the movies that are top budget are 2 of his least rated movies.
And these are and I mean, School of Rock again is his own animal, and that's the cast is great. It's a Jack Black film, more than anything. But these two are also based on books, and I know that Fast Food Nation is as well. That's different, right? That's a different thing than this. But like Bad News Bears was obviously I've heard him talk about he didn't even want to do that. It was like somebody was like it was halfway through and they're like, oh, and he's like, sure, I like that movie. And it wasn't something that he was super invested in, and you can tell.
Okay, yeah.
Nobody.
I've never seen it, to be fair.
It's not. But yeah, this is just one of those ones where I also will say it doesn't land very well. But I would say what I appreciate about it is he did it. Like he could say like, oh, I'm going to try something different. Like it was easy enough for him to, and again, there's still lots of walking and talking in this movie, which is part of the problem with the movie.
Yeah.
But because it's less interesting walking and talking because there has to be it's so plot driven, where most of Linklater's movies are best when they're not plot driven. And while there's 4 characters here, it's still a story, and when it's based on a true story, you're sort of stuck. You're stuck. I don't know, following that story. Like it's like aliens can't land.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think, it feels truthful, to be fair to it. It feels like it's, but I do want to talk about the tone and how it depicts these characters. I think that's definitely worth us talking about. It's just, what is this movie number 4 for him? It feels like he's trying something out.
And
absolutely. And it doesn't really work. And maybe he accepts that himself, which is why he goes back to the well of what he does best pretty soon after this. And it feels like that's maybe the pattern for his general career is like, I'm best at the walking and talking, I'm best at the hangout movies, but I fancy trying this out. Oh, that hasn't worked, so I'll go back to the hangout.
Yeah, because he did Suburbia just before this.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So what's this? This is film number 5 then? Yeah.
I mean, if you count, so Slacker, Dazed, before Suburbia, and then this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I did enjoy Suburbia a lot.
Yeah, I've not seen it.
Saw that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that one is that Giovanni, right? Giovanni Ribisi. Yeah. And Steve Zahn. It's just they just sit around and like most of it I believe takes place outside like a 7-Eleven. It's just like kids walking around talking. It's like Slacker with more of a budget.
Okay. Yeah.
But, and a bigger and different cast, like actual actors.
Right. Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that thoroughly. That was definitely one I saw. It was like, I'll go see with that. Me. I'm like, I'll go see that. I'll go see that art house movie. This was, and then he was like, I'm going to go back. Yeah. Cause next is Waking Life, which is, different.
Is that right? That's rotoscope, isn't it? Waking Life.
Yeah. And I'm not, And I don't know that I've ever gone back to that one. And then he did the one that with just Robert Sean Leonard and Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, where it's just like the 3 of them in a hotel room. It's based on a play. It's called Tics.
Oh, okay.
It's very good. I enjoyed it. I liked it very much. But again, I'm a sucker. I'm an apologist. But yeah, this one, it's hard to apologize for this one. It's just.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I think we will be critical and we'll be truthful, but it's not awful.
No,
it just, and that's why I said to you, like, it's a film. It exists, and there's nothing offensive about it, but there's nothing great about it. And I think Dan talks about this a lot on his podcast. Sometimes the worst sin is to just be a bit boring, and this is just a bit boring. Really, it takes a long time to do anything, and then even when it does something, it doesn't do it with any kind of energy. And it's a film.
And again, that's the thing. The thing that's the most interesting about it is that it's a Richard Linklater film. Like that's the risk that he took, was to do something different than what he's done before. And it's not like, so like when Wes Anderson did the claymation movie,
I Love Dogs.
Yeah, and the one before, the one with George
Fantastic
Clooney,
Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. So when he did that, it was like totally fucking different, but it's still a Wes Anderson movie, right? You're just like, oh, clearly this is still a Wes Anderson movie, just with stop motion animation. this is still, I mean, there's still the walking and talking, but you're trying to squeeze it into a Western. They're fucking bank robbers. Like, it should move a little, like, there should be the frenetic energy. And honestly, the thing that I love about the before movies is they fucking move along.
Yeah.
There's
like,
no
quite
time
literally, they're
breathe.
constantly moving.
Constantly. And the second one, which I still think is the best of the three, is in real time. And then it's like 84 minutes of like, I can't believe it's over and now I'm sobbing.
Yeah.
You're going to be late for your plane. I know. And that's like, like that's the end of the movie. Like, oh my God, I love it so much. And then I'm like, I got to wait 9 more years. I should probably watch that again. And that's what this is missing. It's like, you've got the charm of the two leads. You've got Ethan, you've got Matthew. And D'Onofrioing it up. He's fine. Skeet's fine. He's never been a good actor. He's fine. He's always, he exists to replace Johnny Depp in things. That's why he exists, right?
Exactly.
Quite literally, he got a career because of 21 Jump Street. And he's fine. He's not charming. He doesn't have a natural charm that Ethan Hawke and McConaughey have. Juliana Margulies, I mean, it should be good. There should be some chemistry. There should be some heat on the screen. And I don't know what, you're the film person. So explain to me, if we cut 30 minutes from this, is it better? Is that the problem?
I mean, it is long.
True to the story. It's 2 hours and 2 minutes, and it feels it.
It does, and it even has right in the middle, or just right before the middle. There's the really nice Natalie edited montage where it's like ding ding ding, and here's they've done this crime, and here's the newspaper article, and they've done this crime, and here they are playing baseball. Which another thing I definitely want to cycle back around to if we remember.
Sure.
That section, great. So maybe you just needed a bit more of that with other elements of the story. Yeah, it's definitely too long. I mean, we paused it about halfway through. Em watched this with me. I know you watched this.
Yeah, and Lee watched it too. Yeah, she's got thoughts that I'll share at the end. Yes.
Great, good.
Yeah.
So we paused it and wanted to probably have a break, but she claimed she needed the toilet.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, how long's left?" You move the little cursor to check. She was like, "We're only halfway." She slept through most of the second half.
Okay,
so that's her review.
That says a lot. Yeah.
Definitely half an hour cut out of it, and I think it's good to. I've just done Amistad before this. It's good to try and stick to kind of historical truths as much as you can. But, a little bit of, we don't want historical inaccuracies, but historical anachronisms or cutting bits out of the story in order to move it along for movie length.
Yeah, you and Andy talk about that. Sometimes it's good to merge characters. It's good to say, look, for the record, we know that these were 4 different characters, but to move this shit along, let's just get them. Let's get them here. So these are now one person. Yeah. We all accept that. What Lee Daniels and Danny Strong did with the Butler, right? Did you see the Butler?
Right. I didn't know.
Okay. Very excellent. But when they're like, okay, we can't capture everybody. Lee Daniels, excellent director. Danny Strong, obviously excellent writer. What do we do? Who can we take and zhuzh them up just enough to move this story along? We got Cusack putting on Nixon makeup. That's fun. Let's make sure we linger on that. We've got Alan Rickman as Ronald Reagan. To get those things in there, they needed to cut a few things and move things around. And they fictionalized that person's life enough to tell that story. Great. Yeah. The movie takes place over 40 years and it flies by. Yeah. That's what you got to do.
That is what you've got to do. Yeah. It's just... I mean, a lot of reviews I read mentioned the end credits as being the most interesting part of the movie. And the end credits is
fascinating.
The Tonight Show of Johnny Carson, I think, isn't it? And it's a documentary with 2 of the surviving Newton boys. So if that's the most interesting part of the movie, you've not done a good job.
Just go watch that documentary.
Yeah. And I get why people say that, because seeing the real people is always really interesting. I actually hated it. The editing in that section in the end credits, we're talking about the end credits, only 12 minutes in, but it was such hard edits on there as they cut out from one to the other, because it would go, wouldn't it, from Johnny Carson to the doc and backwards and forwards. the sound was so hard. It was such a hard out. It jolted me every time. I really didn't like it personally.
Yeah, I don't know why they did it. Why they cut back and forth that way. Just show the younger brother on Johnny, and then show the oldest brother. Or it was Doc. No, it was the oldest brother.
It was it was McConaughey's character.
Yeah. And then that's it. Yeah, Willis. Yeah,
Willis. Yeah.
So it was Joe and Willis, and just show the whole Johnny Carson thing. And if you needed to fade in and out of that, fine. Yeah, it was weird. It was
that's all it needed. You're like, it needed a fade. Over. That was it.
It needed to fade.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen up, Linklater. Come to this school of Jack.
Oh yeah. He really needs to hear from me. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he knows. I mean, but again, I will see anything Richard Linklater does. I will, because he's willing to try stuff. So, right. He does the rotoscope things. And I still think, one of the best Philip K. Dick adaptations, when Scott and Julian and I talked about Total Recall, which, everybody loves Total Recall because it's Verhoeven, but like the books are generally hard to adapt. But when Linklater was like, what if I do this? You're like, that's really good. Try something different. And I don't know. Scanner Darkly probably bombed. It probably didn't make its money back.
No, I don't think it did.
But again, very expensive film as well. But I think, to quote Spider-Dan again, at least he made a boring film, but I don't know that he was trying to be boring.
No, not at all. I think he fell into the trap that a lot of these movies do. And you mentioned it then. This is like a Western gangster movie. Like, this should be awesome. This should be so exciting. We should be taking the two best elements of those genres and combining them together. And we've got bank robberies. We've got it's not dynamite, is it? It's
the plastic
explosives. Yeah. It's got a train robbery in it. It does
have a train robbery in it. There's police officers chasing them.
Yeah.
You've got the love affair, right? You've got you've got all these things happening. It should be great. And
none of it has energy. And the films that you compare this to, something like, and it's not his best work, but like Public Enemies, Michael Mann's Public Enemies with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp.
Obviously, like Heat, obviously. I mean, I know that's modern, but Heat obviously is playing with these tropes as well. And even something like Lawless, the Tom Hardy movie.
Yeah.
That's like a cowboy that's like a Western gangster movie as well.
Yeah.
So these things exist, and all of these things are much more.
Well, Last Man Standing,
interesting.
The Bruce Willis's Yojibu, right? Like that is so great. That's probably of the genre that is the Western gangster.
Yeah,
Last Man Standing is probably my favorite, and that is just still people standing around talking, looking tough.
Yeah,
but goddamn, does it move? Is it so good? The music, Ry Cooder did the music, so that probably helped with that. Like the soundtrack, the soundtrack didn't help.
No. That's true.
And like you talked about the one part of the movie where it was like the jangly, of that. Like we needed that. And like you and Andy were just talking that like John Williams did Amistad.
Yeah, did he?
Did he? I know. Are you sure?
Yeah.
And so I feel like this movie too, in the right hands with the right composer too, that also is very compelling and could have helped.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Again, we've talked about it. Like Star Wars without John Williams is a terrible movie.
Yeah.
And there were some things, and I honestly cannot remember the score of this at all. So is there one? Is there music?
Well, somebody plays music in it, which must have been Tony Mecca. You've got Ethan Hawke playing a uke. I
love it. I know.
I imagine you sitting on your sofa exploding at that point.
I was so excited. Excitement. I totally forgot that he did that. And and I know he is a musician, obviously. That's, in Reality Bites, that's him playing. And that is obviously him singing and playing. I know, it was very cool. It was like,
Tony's bouncing on the sofa.
But that's it. But the fact that that's the music, that's not the score, right? No. And maybe it should have been. Maybe Ethan should have written the score.
I think it was all over the place, the score.
Yeah.
The only bit that stands out to me is that I can have any kind of memory of is when they're in Canada.
Okay.
And they do like a stick 'em up. So their shtick in this, isn't it, is that they rob banks, but only at night because
and they don't ever hurt anybody.
They don't want to hurt. Well, they don't ever kill anybody.
Correct. Lots of brain damage. Lots of brain damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Daredevil style. Daredevil doesn't kill, but boy, everybody's got really concussed. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's their shtick, isn't it? Like they do it at night. and they're only robbing they're only robbing smaller old style banks because they have the square safe which allows them to pour the plastic explosive into like around the outside of the safe door as the circle, and it all runs off, and there's a whole thing.
And that's all true. That was interesting. Like that is really fascinating. Like a commentary on technology beating thieves, and like to be a different kind of thief, you're gonna have to do something better, right? Do you see me holding up convenience stores with a Bone to Lose tattoo, right? Like that line, right? That line in Heat is one of De Niro's best delivered lines ever, because he's reading books on metallurgy, like they're doing, there's science to the bank robbery. They're still criminals. So that was cool. Yeah. But then.
So in Canada they do the stick 'em up. Yeah. They rob because they. I can't. I say that again. I've blanked it. I can't remember why they can't do the original job. Maybe is that when they break into the square safe?
It's empty. No. The problem with the Canadian banks was It was they couldn't get into there, and then they were constantly moving the money. There was no actual money there.
So they choose to rob them in transport, which again, maybe this is the kind of birth of that idea, which should be interesting. But that scene is so poorly played. Like this is the one time when they do kind of use their guns and they hurt people like deliberately. And in the background it's like and you're like, no, you just shot that dude. You just shot him. That's not a happy thing.
It definitely didn't play. It wasn't tense. And again,
and it's really slapsticky when Ethan Hawke's like, let go of my leg. And
it wasn't funny. They were trying, but it wasn't. It didn't land, and because that's not a funny scene.
No, not at all. It's the least funny scene in the movie. This is as you said, it should be tense. It should be, we've broken our rule here.
Right.
And actually, really, I know it's not the truth of the story, but again, we're massaging the truth to tell a good story. This is when there should have been some comeuppance on somebody, but they all just they get away with it. I mean, I know guns historically were harder to shoot, but I mean, the people in this movie are worse than stormtroopers, right?
100%. Yeah.
They're like 3 feet away from each other, firing their guns.
To be fair, Canadians don't use guns that often.
Well, okay. Yeah, all right.
We both decided to take a drink at the same time. You're like, keep talking. That was great. No, right. And we're both wearing gray shirts. Yeah, we're in sync. So,
that's the only bit of score I can remember, and it was totally misplaced, totally mismatched.
It was, and I do think, and this is part of the problem too. That's like the hulking D'Onofrio-ness of it all, right? He's so big. He's such a huge man. Like my favorite thing that ever was said about D'Onofrio in a film was in the remake of The Magnificent Seven when he walks by and Chris Pratt's character says that bear was wearing people clothes. Yeah. And I was like, that's exactly right. Like that's another Ethan Hawke D'Onofrio mashup. They've done several films together. But he's so big and hulking, and it's like we're supposed to believe he's part of this family, which is hard enough because he's so
none
big.
Of them look like they're brothers.
No, not at all. Not at all. But
McConaughey and Ethan Hawke don't look anything like each other. Skeet, nothing like any of them.
Not at all.
McConaughey's meant to be the oldest as well. Like what?
Correct. I know. Like really, you're older than D'Onofrio? Come on. Yeah. Even if you are,
which is not. I think it's about 10 years difference.
Right. So D'Onofrio was born 50, and so. And he's always looked like that, right? And I didn't see Full Metal Jacket. I've only seen, I obviously know it from commercials. But even in those, you're like, oh, that guy's like 50 years old. Look at him. He's a hulking beast of a man. And that hurt that scene. He's not fluid. He's not it. So that almost played up to the accidental comedy of like this bumbling oaf, like kicking his own hat down the road. And it's like, and if you're that big, if you're him, and you are that bear of a man, this isn't a fight. Like that doesn't work. No.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's not only that, but he's like done prison time. Like he's a soldier. This is no joke. Yeah. So it just doesn't work. And that's supposed to, and then that's the pivotal moment of the movie where, Juliana Margulies and what's her name? Louise, like she's learning about all the lies and everything. And that tension's supposed to be on top of all the tension between the brothers. So again, should be this big emotional peak in the movie. And
they keep hinting at stuff, don't they? Because it feels like Ethan Hawke and Matthew McConaughey have a slightly antagonistic kind of brotherly, fraternal relationship, but it never turns into anything. You have D'Onofrio and Hawke as kind of the playboys of the family. Like they're enjoying the money and the success and drinking.
Correct. And
that never really turns into anything. It never really causes any real drama or tension. Yeah, you have with Lou finding out what Willis is really up to, McConaughey and Margulies, absolutely. But again, she just sort of seems to forgive him and move on, and that never.
And
turns
again,
into
that
anything.
feels right, and that feels like a waste of her. Like she could have been anybody. Like she's a good actor. Like but it could have been anybody.
It could
Why
have been,
have her? There was nothing going on. I mean, like
no chemistry at all. Which we talk about
weird.
this.
Yeah,
weird with McConaughey, right? Because most people have chemistry with him.
It is weird. It was a weird thing, and I don't know.
No, I mean, there was just nothing there really at all. I didn't buy it. But even like Skeet's character, Joe, he's the youngest brother, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, again, he seems to sort of be reluctant to join the life and at times is pushing back and saying we shouldn't be doing this. But again, that doesn't turn it into anything. So all these potential areas of conflict and drama and tension, which is what stories thrive on, get hinted at and then just get forgotten in order to to get to the next scene. It's a shame.
And because Linklater knows how to do it. I mean, okay, so this is his 5th movie, right? And so if you just go back, Slacker, there's no story to Slacker. But like getting through the night, it's an emotional rush getting through Slacker. Like it is, I mean, I genuinely loved the experience of Slacker, right? But then you deal with, obviously, Dazed and Confused. There's a ton of tension there. Like, and there was tension on screen and off screen, and it comes through and everybody it is tense. It is really like, there's real conflict happening there. And, with friends, with the coach, with each other, obviously the whole, the before movies are built on tension. They're built on conflict. They're built on which one of them is going to be the asshole first, or which one of them is going to make up to each other first. The thing that I love about the before movies, you love them both and they're both assholes. Jessie more than Celine, but she's an asshole too. And it's so good. And then it's so how to do that. He knows how to do. And again, I think he was so beholden to the plot. And this is what you and Andy just talked about with Amistad too. Whereas, like in Contact, they were willing, and I love that you had Paul on there because he's like, I didn't realize what an expert he was on that. Was great. I was like, oh, going to school with Paul. I love that.
Yeah.
But the change, he's like, well, no, you got to make the changes because it's a different medium than this. And it's like, so again, like you said, that's make an adapt, man.
Yeah.
You got to do it, and that just didn't happen here. You didn't get to the point. You didn't get to the moment where we care. And I do think the brotherly conflict. And again, so play up the tension. Like Joe and Willis and Joe and Doc really don't know each other.
No.
So I think there's that, and so that's when you can have, you have to have Jess be like, let me tell you something, little brother. And really, or have them bond, have something to get him on their side. I don't know. And maybe, and again, I know that you need Dwight Yoakam's character because he's the guy who invented the plastic explosive thing. But maybe he's the character you cut too, to do some of that.
He's in that first scene, right? To teach Willis how to do it.
And then we don't need him again. But no.
Yeah.
We got to keep him around. And that is the part.
Because then the tension in the next scene is, can Willis do it properly? Or is he going to blow them up?
Right.
Which they sort of, again, hint at doing, but never comes to anything. But yeah, there's lots of ways to make this, to introduce this kind of tension or this kind of drama, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, whether he's beholden to the true story. I mean, I've not read the book.
Me neither.
Wow. Okay. All right. We found a book you haven't read.
Hey, now I have not read Contact either.
That's a compliment. That's, I know. Thank you. I know it came across as like a snarky,
I know.
sassy insult.
I understood. No, I actually have never read Contact either. It was kind of one of those things where I saw the movie first. I was almost like, I don't know that I want to fuck with it.
I don't know if I want the even more dense scientific version than what I've already got in the movie.
Correct. And I'm not super sciencey, right? And I did one time, I was like, I'm going to learn about chaos theory. So I got a book, I read about chaos theory, and here's what I learned. You can't predict the fucking weather. So I was like, okay. So that, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I'm not good at science. So I read a 400-page book on chaos theory, and it was like, the weather's unpredictable. Well, no shit. I live in Michigan. I know. So So Contact, right? I saw Contact. I know she didn't win an award for that. I still think it's her finest performance.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
I mean, it's like, well, it's just what it is now. I don't want to know something else. You know what I mean? That was like an intentional not reading. But all of that is to say, I didn't read this one because, again, they're not very interesting.
No, that's it, isn't it? Like Jesse James, another person which plays with this sense. They try and do it here with that kind of Robin Hood sense that they've got here of like, we only rob the banks and we only take the insurance company's money, and that's really labored here. But
they say it 48 times.
Oh God, yeah, I know.
Did you know that we only rob? Do you want to hear all about the insurance? And the thing is Lee and I were like, well, that's not FDIC insurance. So in America, there's a thing called FDIC insurance, which is like federally backed deposit insurance. And so it seems like the Newtons, this bank robbery spree is what was the impetus for FDIC, right? Eventually, but that wasn't it. The impetus for FDIC was the stock market crash. That's why they had to do that. But this sort of setting you up to think like, oh, it's because of the new. Well, no. And it just doesn't work. And it's like, okay, with these private insurers and they're just the criminals. No, you're the criminal. Be the criminal. And the reason that Heat works is because they, and again, it's hard. Richard Linklater is not Michael Mann. They do different things. They're good directors in different ways. But Heat works because they don't belabor that point.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just a job.
We've got a code, and it's a job, and we'll do it. They've got a code here, which again is spoken aloud.
Right.
Listen again, like we can't allow you to understand this. We have to tell you this. We don't kill nobody. We don't steal from women or children, and we don't rat. But you are stealing from women and children because you're taking their money from. Anyway, I mean, they're not interesting enough as people. And what Linklater doesn't do, and we were talking about this before we started recording, is make this about anything.
Right.
So the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Great.
Amazing title. What a movie that is.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a long, slow movie. I'm not going to use the word boring because it is never boring, but it is a long, slow movie.
Very slow. That was it. I was like, I tried to watch it at night the first time I saw it. I was like, I'm going to finish this tomorrow. And because it was a lot. I was like, oh, I'm not. If your attention wanes for a second, you could leave for a few minutes of this movie and not miss much. This is a potty break kind of movie.
Yes, 100%. We didn't need to pause it.
But
that's about something, right? That's about celebrity. That's about infamy. That's a movie about something. This is a movie that's kind of just glorifying these brothers, and it doesn't have anything to say. And it's glorifying these brothers in what has become a really generic story, with really generic, tropey characters that perhaps these were some of the first people doing this and should be celebrated. Not celebrated, but should be depicted.
Yeah.
But we've seen so many other versions of this since that are just far better.
Yeah. No, it's all of that is true. I couldn't agree more. I will now. All of that said, I'm not going to be totally grumpy Gus. I do want to say, I think they all are doing work. They're all working their asses off.
They're four brothers.
Correct. The four of them. Three brothers. Yeah. I think they're all working their asses off. I think as actors, I have nothing to say bad about anything Ethan Hawke does in his performance.
No,
I think he's great. I think this is I'm not a big Skeet Ulrich fan. I think he's really good in this. He's not. He's good, right?
What he has to do is like the youngest brother. Yeah.
That's because, and again, he's got to kind of play in awe and also like go his own way, as it were. He doesn't, but the conflict, like the moments of conflict are his alone, and he doesn't say them out loud. And that's where it needs to happen. It can't just be like, you're going to expose and exposit, but like give Joe something to say instead of just like surly teenage look. Cause he's supposed to be an angry teenager. I think McConaughey is working.
Yeah. Great.
So, and I think, D'Onofrio's D'Onofrio. So I feel like, and Dwight Yoakam's a country singer. Mm-hmm. So he's completely serviceable. So I do think there are some really good performances here. I do think Ethan Hawke, and again,
He's the standout.
He is the standout. He's so good, and he is having fun. He is in a movie where he's like, I'm going to have fun with this guy. Yeah. And he gets to ride the horses. That's him riding the horses. He gets to play music. He gets to do the things that he does. He's a kid from Texas too. This is like, it's funny. He's also a kid from Texas who manages to not have his accent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Matthew McConaughey has never figured out how to not be that kid.
I'm so glad though, because when I don't hear it, I really miss it.
Yeah,
like, he is the actor that has to keep his accent and everything, because as we said with Amistad, like, no, you don't sound like McConaughey anymore. Like,
right.
You've turned your glimmer down, like you've gone down 33% or something. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and I don't know. I mean, I've seen interviews with Ethan Hawke. He doesn't have one. He doesn't sound like a kid from Texas. Yeah, it's like Ben Folds, right? Ben Folds, you don't know that he's from North Carolina anymore. You know what I mean? He's even he wrote that into a song. Maybe I should take a class to lose my Southern accent. That's like he wrote it right into one of his songs. And so, like, I get it. It's fine. But yeah, I think Ethan Hawke is really, really good, and I think McConaughey is really good. And I know he's the reason we're here today. I think he's really good, and I think their chemistry, like, I want more with them. Like, I want an Ethan Hawke, Matthew McConaughey buddy cop movie. I want an Angry Brothers movie. I want a remake of Tango and Cash with the two of them. Like, there's 50 things I could think of that I want them in. And they're both, like, as they've aged. The one thing I can say about McConaughey, like, Ethan Hawke's just aged. Like, I remember when Paul Schaefer did Schrader. Sorry, not Paul Schaefer. Not the guy from David Letterman's band. Paul Schrader. When he did First Reformed, I heard an interview with him where he said, "Well, I really wanted Ethan to do it because he's got that face. You know, he's got a face that looks lived in, and I didn't want somebody who couldn't pull that off." And Ethan was like there with him, and he was like, "Oh, so what you're saying is, I look awful." But that is
you look like a normal human being of your age. That's absolutely fine.
Exactly. That's what he was trying to get at, was like, you look worn, you look exhausted. This guy, did you see First Reformed?
No.
So good. But he looks exhausted. And, like, they have Amanda Seyfried in there. So, like, she's, young and fresh faced. And so it's even more stark. Like, oh,
look at this juxtaposition.
Correct. And so that's what, that's what he does. That's what Schrader does. But, after McConaughey did what he did to his body for Dallas Buyers Club, he didn't really come back from it. He didn't rebound like he did previously, and he looked bad for a while, and he still looks pretty bad. And I think, like, and that's okay. Like, I appreciate that he's aged, and so I'm here for, if Richard wants to get them back together, I'm here for whatever you want to give me, because I do think some of the best scenes are them together and separate. And they carry the movie as best they can. And so I do think, and again, I think Juliana Margulies is a fine actor, and I think she was wasted in this. I don't know if there was some tension with her and Matthew, and again, I've never heard that. I've never heard anybody like, working with McConaughey sucked balls. It was just like, and I don't know. I don't know.
It just something just doesn't work, does it? And like, I can think of plenty of examples where he's got female co-stars where it does.
Yeah. And is it the edit? Did we lose something in the edit? How much of this was in because, like, we know that happens. And he's not Robert Rodriguez. He doesn't edit his own movies, right? So this was obviously a studio movie, studio paid. This was whenever the bigger the budget is, more people get involved. And I don't know. I've never heard Linklater talk about this. I know you said McConaughey doesn't talk much about it in Greenlight. So I don't know if they lost it in the edit. And nobody wants to say that. Nobody wants to say, like, goddamn studio. Linklater's only his fifth movie. There's no reason he would have had final editorial control. They gave a nobody kid $25 million. Yeah. They're going to do what they want to do with it. So I don't know if that's the problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, like you say, there's not enough out there about it. But I do agree that that's where the film shines, is when Hawke or McConaughey, or especially Hawke and McConaughey, are on screen together. It's almost as if you wish you could rewrite history and kind of rewrite this movie. So it was about as you said, like these two brothers doing this series of bank robberies, building up to the train robbery, like constantly bickering, constantly falling out.
Yeah.
This train robbery going wrong, and that being the time they choose to go their separate ways. Then you could probably start finding some subtext about kind of family and found family and,
I agree.
The corruption of the innocent. Like Ethan Hawke's character is the innocent cowboy farm boy, and he's been corrupted by Willis coming back to the family farm and taking him away with him. And there's a story there to be told. Unfortunately, it's not this story because that's not the quote unquote true story.
Correct. And is it just because it's at this time in his career he didn't have the? I don't even know. Does Linklater get does he get a writing credit
on this?
Yeah, he does get a screenplay by.
Yeah.
He gets, based on the book, Cloud Staunch, screenplay by. So Linklater is getting a third of the writing credit on that.
Yeah.
And that's you can tell there was people standing around talking.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's probably the film at this point that he wanted to make. And I think he was trying something out. And as we said at the top, it didn't quite work out. I mean, I assume he wanted to try his hand at something that had period detail in it, and boy howdy, they spent the money on that. The production design is really impressive.
Even the magazine stand, that is like such an important detail. Like they spent a lot of money on that, and I'm glad they kept coming back to it. Like we built this fucking magazine stand, we're gonna come back to it because that isn't such an important detail. And even like when he's getting his shoe shined, having that look. Yeah. There was a lot of things about that hotel that they were in, and that was really good. The costumes were great. They look sharp. Everybody's suits fit, which that doesn't always happen in period dramas. They're like whatever's laying around in the backlight. Like when you look at those old Star Trek episodes, and they're like, oh, just whatever's in the Desilu studio. That's what you're wearing today, and you're like, oh, this doesn't fit. Okay, well we're wearing it. Get on with it. So they really did spend the time and money. On the hair, the makeup. Yeah.
It feels lived in. It feels real. I buy it all the way through. I buy this is the world they're in.
Yeah.
I just don't really want to spend that much time in it.
Well, it is a 6.1 on IMDb, which is,
and it, it's not awful. This is for me, this is a 2.5. This is a 5.
Oh yeah. And
it's not a terrible movie. It's just, it's not.
It's because
it's unremarkable.
We're coming at this too. Like I remember liking it fine when I watched it, however many years ago. And again, but I didn't like it enough to be. It wasn't a before. It wasn't like other Linklaters. It wasn't like I got to see that again and again. I got to own the Criterion Collection version, like I do for the before movies. It's not like I wrote a whole paper during my MFA on the before trilogy, like on character development. Like I was writing about characters, a whole class on character. So I was like, I'm going to write about the before trilogy, and my professor was like, "Yeah, you are."
I want to do that. I want to write about Wesley.
Right. He's like, "Go do that, please." You know what I mean? It was like such a cool, fun thing to do, and so I think, it's good. It's just in hindsight because we've seen them all do so much better things, and even before this, like in real time. They've done better things than this individually and collectively, because Linklater has worked with both of them before. And so on paper, I'm sure that's what got all the money. They're like, we got McConaughey and Linklater back together. We got Hawke and Linklater back together. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Vincent D'Onofrio is going to show up and be weird.
This is what, the year after Scream? So Skeet's blowing up. Skeet's suddenly... He's a leading man in a hit teen movie. Yeah, absolutely. I can see.
Right.
And they look good on the poster. The poster's cool. They're also there together with that font going over the top of them in their pose with their sharp suits on. And
he was in The Craft too, Skeet.
Of course he was. Yeah.
He was around. Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It should have been better.
It should have been. Yeah. And so, whether it was, like you said, interference, whether it was connection to the material, whether it was the kind of slavish need to stick to the source, I don't know. But much like we said in the last episode, sorry for that to be repetitive to the listeners, but it's kind of has the same feel of like, this felt like it could have been something more, and it's something about it just isn't coming together. And kind of every element other than when the brothers have that kind of bit of camaraderie together, like that first scene when D'Onofrio comes back and they all bundle on top of each other.
Yeah, that was fun. Right.
I believe it. I believe that these are brothers reconnecting, and Joe and Don have never met before, and that was a nice little moment that was played really well. but it just spends too much time maybe on the wrong things and scenes which don't add up to much. Like we said before, like all these potential elements where it could have taken the story and it stops itself, and then now we're on to the next thing, and then now we're on to the next thing. And
I agree.
It's like we said before, it's like a 6-year-old telling a story, right? And then.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because in a movie, you are inherently showing, right?
Yes,
but in this, there's just so much telling.
There's a lot of telling,
and it shouldn't be. It's a movie. Movies are shows, not tells. But this is definitely a lot of tells. And again, I don't know the reason. But again, right, it's not a terrible film. It is not the worst film of any of their careers.
Believe me, it's not the worst film I've watched of McConaughey so far.
God, no.
Quite some stretch.
And look, I've watched like Ethan Hawke. He had that stretch where and he just likes to work. He's done some of those Nicolas Cagey type straight to DVD, straight to streaming. Guy in a fast car, bad. And I've watched them. Yeah. I watch it. Fucking A. I mean, those are not very good. But it's like work. I understand.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I would argue probably Skeet Ulrich has probably been in something way worse than this.
For sure. Yeah.
He definitely just, because again, it's like I'm sure, and I haven't done it, but I'm sure he ended up in like some movie with like, Corey Feldman at some time. I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So,
Chill Factor. That's what you need to be Googling after we finish talking. Look up Chill Factor starring Skeet Ulrich.
Oh.
It's like a knockoff Speed.
Really?
Yeah, he has to keep a canister. Yeah, he has to keep a canister of like a. It's a canister of like a, like a viral disease in an ice cream truck under a certain temperature.
Amazing.
And get away from the bad guys who want to capture it. It's awful, but I mean, it's fun.
Well, he looks like he's going to be Giancarlo Esposito, who's fucking cool as fuck. He's got a new show called Parish that Skeet is in. So he's still working. He gets to be with Giancarlo. Giancarlo Esposito's fucking cool. I'm sorry. Yeah. He's one of those guys where you're like, who's cool? Like, you start listing names like Sam Jackson / Giancarlo Esposito. Fucking cool. Like, it just doesn't matter. You're like, that guy's cool. Like, that's just the thing, right?
Yeah.
Christian Slater in True Romance. You're so cool. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I will definitely look that up. I'm really excited about watching that piece of shit. I mean, I'm going to watch it. Like, I'm looking at some of the things that he's in. Wow. He was on Jericho. That show was pretty good. That didn't last long enough. No. Yeah. Chill Factor. Oh my God. I found it. It's him and Cuba Gooding Jr. too.
Cuba, yeah.
Wow. All right, Marks.
Both at a really high point of their career, for sure.
Shockingly, it's on the Roku channel and Tubi.
Yeah.
And it's only a few years after this. It's 1999.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny because Adrian Brody just won. Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, Adrian Brody just won an Oscar again, right? And it's like, so now he'll get to be an A-list actor again. But he always was. It's just you forgot. And so that he starts being in like shit movies. And then he continues to have to be in shit movies. And it's like, now he's won an Oscar again. So it's like, oh, he's back. Just like Nicolas Cage is still great in everything he's in.
Of course,
he's, like Dream Scenario was ridiculous. It was batshit crazy. It was no different than any of the other crazy bullshit nutty movies Nick Cage does. But it's like, who decides what's good? Do you know what I mean? Like in the moment, what is because I heard Slumdog wasn't actually never supposed to be released in the theater. It was supposed to be a straight to DVD at the time. But it was like something fell through in the schedule. They're like, well, it's Danny Boyle. He made it for a nickel. Let's go ahead and throw it out there and see what happens. Oh, right. So it did okay. And because Dev Patel is charming as fuck. Right. So that also helps. But anyway, sorry, you were saying, and I was rambling.
No, I was just going to say that for Cooper, it's the same, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Think Jerry Maguire, what's that, 96?
Yeah.
3 years later, he's in Chill Factor too.
Correct. Wow. Oh,
yeah, those guys.
But they want to work. People just work, and that's just what it is. And I do think it's interesting, the thing about McConaughey, and I know that's, again, why we're here today. So I'll talk about him. What he did here in this performance was exactly what was to be expected. He's one of those guys who wants to show up and work. He likes Linklater. He understood the assignment. It was another West Texas movie. It's a perfect fit for him. And I think he's good. I think I understand why he wanted to play this role. Willis is complicated. Coming off the back of the things that he just had done, he's playing characters that are different. Previous to this, so he needed to like play McConaughey again, right?
Yeah.
He like with Contact and Amistad, he was doing something a little different, and so sometimes you just want to eat comfort food. It's Richard Linklater again. You get to go back to Texas for a while. I totally get why he took this role. Yeah. It was not the stretch of his legs that Amistad was, but also, don't you kind of want to clear your brain after that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
And he was straight into this from Amistad, literally the day after finishing filming in Amistad. He's on set here in rehearsal, getting ready to film. So maybe that's exactly what it is. It's like a little palate cleanser. Yeah, and he's a leading man. Like he holds
to be top
this movie.
Billing. Yeah, 100%.
He's top billing and he deserves it. He holds the screen. He, as you said, he turns up and he does the work. And I buy him as the leader of this group. I buy that all the brothers would follow his charismatic lead.
Yeah.
And in fact, they should have just changed it. They should have just made Don the older brother. But because Willis is the one with the charisma and with the ideas and the smarts and that he would follow him anyway. So again, another little simple change that would have made a big difference. But
I agree.
Yeah, I think he walks out of this fine. Hawke walks out of this fine. I mean, everyone walks out of this fine. But
nobody embarrassed themselves. Even Richard didn't embarrass himself.
No, not at all.
It didn't make money, but and also they're all white guys, so they all get a chance to fit. No, it's true. Do you know what I mean? It's awful, but if you know what I'm saying, like if Diablo Cody did this, you know what I mean? Like if somebody else rolled up, if a woman rolled up and did this and it bombed, they'd be like, well, I guess you don't get to make movies again.
Yeah.
Well, why? I tried. I did what was asked of me. Sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay. That's art. Doesn't all have to land. Like the show we'll do next, Briscoe didn't land. If Briscoe came out today, it would be a fucking ridiculous hit. It'd be a runaway hit. But because it was what it was when it was, it couldn't find its audience. Firefly. Like you think of things, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. This wasn't that. This was in the right place at the right time. It just didn't work. But we tried. Nobody sabotaged it. It wasn't the fucking Highlander Renegade cut. It wasn't bad on purpose. Yeah.
Oof. Speaking of our other show, that one we talk about, kind of, does it stand the test of time? Are there any issues with it? Women in this movie? Yeah, not great.
Not great at all.
Not a good time to be a woman, evidently, in history in Texas at this point.
No, not good at all. No.
Goodness.
It was definitely not good.
They're either objects to seduce and have sex with,
or mothers,
or mothers. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that is all. Yeah, it's not great. It does not hold up.
No. Because even like Margiela's character, who is the leading lady, I mean, she is literally just the mole. She's just on his arm, follows him wherever he goes, like a little lapdog, like a little pup, isn't she? Yeah.
It doesn't work.
That definitely stood out to me. Again, perhaps they added a bit more character to her,
which she should have had.
Yeah, where she, I'm going to leave you then, or...
Well, I mean, she's interesting, right? She's got the backstory. She's got an interesting backstory. She's got a son.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah.
She's got the weird relationship with her boss.
Yeah.
There's stuff there that really could have been plumbed. Again, if we're rewriting the movie and it's just the Newton brothers, it's just the two brothers, and it's the two of them and her, that's a story, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And then you wanted to talk about the baseball scene?
Oh, just because. Catherine Hardwicke is the production designer on this. I didn't realize she had such a prolific production designer history. So she goes on to be a very successful director herself. She made 13. That was her first movie, which is a hard watch.
Holy shit.
An excellent movie.
I've never watched it again, but sure, of course.
Yeah. And of course went on to direct the first Twilight, which also has a baseball scene.
It does.
Genuinely, when I watched this, I was like, oh shit, that's like the Twilight scene. And it's in the montage. It's them playing baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, like Margiela's as Lou is joining in, and it felt like, this is supposed to be like a kind of kitschy American wholesome moment. And then when I was doing the research, I was like, oh, Catherine Hardwicke. hang on, didn't you do Twilight? And just my brain made these connections that definitely aren't there about like, ooh.
Wow. No, but she did. Obviously, that's funny. And I never saw the Twilight.
But it's in the book of Twilight, isn't it? I've never read the book.
Yeah, they play baseball. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, my theory went because I thought Catherine Hardwicke brought that with her, but no.
Well, but I mean, maybe the way that she shot it or something. Yeah, no, they play. I did read the books of Twilight because we had kids who were reading the books of Twilight, so we read them. Yes, they play baseball in the rain because they hit it so hard to make so much noise.
Right.
That thunder covers it up, but they all like baseball because baseball. Sure. I mean, it's not for everybody's game.
No, I mean, and that is not for everybody's book or for everybody's movie.
No, it is not. And again, but it's
one and done for me. That was
the Twilights. Yeah, I read all the books.
I watched one. Oh, that's what this is. No, I'm done.
Yeah, it's they get progressively worse. The books do too, and that's kind of like the.
You mean an adult werewolf imprinting himself on a baby girl is
disgusting.
It's not okay.
So disgusting. Oh my god, there's so much.
I can't honestly, have your mum, so you'll do.
Yeah, it's so gross. It's so gross. But that's kind of like the first hate bang that I really remember. Like, because after she gets turned and then they have sex and they knock down houses and stuff, and there's like, fuck, that's a lot. Is this how Mormons think sex is? Like, Jesus Christ. It shouldn't be this angry. My God. But it's funny because your sister and Jess are doing like a hate bang series. That's me. They're calling it that because of me. There was some book, the Fourth Wing book. I was reading this book and I'm going along and it's fine. And there's dragons and all this stuff. And then there's just like this hate bang, like literally. And that's all it reminded me of. So I said that to Jess and she didn't realize what book I was talking about. And then later when she's reading it, she's like, oh, that's the hate bang book. So now your sister and she and her friend, and I can't think of her friend, Bianca. I can't think of her name. I apologize. But they're going through all these romantasy books. So the hate bang series, as they're calling it, where it's like, they just randomly stick that into the middle of a book. But this is baseball in the middle of it, apparently.
It is. Yeah.
That's actually one of the more fun scenes, though.
Baseball bang. Yeah.
Baseball bang. Yeah. Or that's Basketball, which is a movie by Trey Parker, which is bad.
I saw that a long time ago because, of course, you did.
Yeah.
Because, there's a subtitle.
Yeah, it was them. Yeah.
I've got no memory of it, though.
That's the right choice.
Yeah.
Whether you actually don't have memory of it or you've beautiful Eternal Sunshine did away.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever. Yeah, it's good. Leave that out. Well,
and look at this. Look at this segue.
Matthew,
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of no memory.
Matthew. Yeah,
there we go. So, yes, we spoke, didn't we, about how he was on location working on Amistad, and then he goes on to say in the same paragraph, I think, as I sort of led in the last show, he says, I also made the Newton Boys with my old friend. He gave me my first shot on their business, Richard Linklater. It was about an outlaw gang of brothers who were the most successful train and bank robbers in history. The man I portrayed was Willis Newton, who was from my hometown of Uvalde, Texas. One of the originators of outlaw logic, he'd rather shoot the lock than use a key any day.
That's all he says?
That's all he says.
Wow. Okay.
So, he wants to acknowledge Linklater, which is nice, but clearly it's another film which, in his legacy of filmmaking and starring, it doesn't do much for him, I don't think.
Right, and I don't think any of them are like, this is not on anybody's sizzle reel.
I mean, yeah, I'd never heard of it before starting this project.
Sure, which you keep running into.
It's true. Yeah, early McConaughey's were clearly not my thing back in the late 90s, I guess.
Yeah, which is fine.
But I also don't think a lot of them would have made it over to the UK.
No.
I can't see why this would have, maybe it was in the cinema for a week, but, it wouldn't have come across my
it's not something, that's right. It's not the kind of criminal movie that translates. It's not like The Godfather. It's not like Heat. It's not that kind of thing. I mean, and again, because it's just not that. So
no.
Yeah.
I think that's true of the ones which I've not heard of them because they didn't really exist here.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. It was like that Bad Monkey movie you told me about, whatever that movie's called, about the guy who's a monkey. It's not called Bad Monkey.
Oh, Better Man, the Robbie Williams.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Music.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't know who that was.
My brain, could you see it?
I could. I was like,
behind the eyes.
I didn't know what it was called.
Like,
and it was
work
like,
your way through. Work your way through. What is that? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I didn't know who that was.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
So so sometimes there's just some things like Chris and Dave talk about the Carry On movies, like everybody knows what they are. I don't.
Yeah, you are not.
I know now because of them, but I didn't know. I wouldn't have known.
That's not a cultural touchstone that you need to worry about missing.
Okay, fair. Sounds awful. They sound
That's
bad,
an embarrassing
so.
period of our history, I think, more than anything.
Fair enough. Okay, that's all right.
Letterboxd.
Sure.
Okay, Woody Burchett says McConaughey's charisma is deployed to great effect. Hawke is somehow equally as charming. Really love Linklater's shaggy approach to the story, which seems pretty unique for this genre. The little monologue Dwight Yoakam gives right before blowing the first bank safe is electric. Fun cast, great chemistry, stunning costume sets and cars. A delight.
Wow. I mean, I agree that they were great, and the costume being A+ for the costume design.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, interesting. And that doesn't feel, sometimes when you read these, it feels like nostalgia for the movie when you were young.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to have that sense to me. It just
No.
just appreciate this for what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, MC said, I didn't really know what to expect with this film, but I was pleasantly surprised. This is a solid film with a good cast and a great story. I also love the fact that this is based on a true story. Just makes all the characters even cooler. My only real problem with this film is to do with the tone. The tone just sort of jumps around too much. One moment it's really serious, the next it's almost slapstick. Definitely worth checking out, though, especially if you like heist films.
I disagree with that last comment, but yes, it isn't super heisty. You just watch them do it. It's not. Yeah,
there is something about like heist. It's like the I think we've spoken about this before, actually, but it's like the acceptable kind of criminal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like these guys, what they're doing is not okay, by the way, but we kind of accept it.
Right,
it's funny, isn't it?
Cool. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's the Michael Mann. We grew up just thinking heists are cool.
Wow.
It's
just, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, and it isn't Michael Mann. He didn't invent it, but he perfected it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And those are great. I mean, again, I respect both of those reviews.
But we have to have, the other end of the spectrum.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Skate Punk says, watch this mostly for its insane cast, even after hearing it's not very good. And yeah, it's pretty boring. Hawke, McConaughey, Ulrich, and D'Onofrio are fantastic as always, but unfortunately the script they had doesn't give them much to do. So not overly negative.
No, I do think it needed a 30-minute cut. I mean, I love Speed Racer. It could be 20 minutes shorter, and then it would be perfect. Right? I do think all of the Wachowskis movies could cut 20 minutes, right? And they would be then like, it doesn't matter. Like some movies just need, like, unless it's Commando, it probably needs to be edited a little.
Sure.
There's no meat.
There'd be nothing left in Commando, yeah.
It's
it'd just be a chainmail vest. There'd be nothing left.
Right, there'd be nothing left. But there's just in Die Hard, right? I know there's very little to cut there. Very little. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could trim, but it's still so perfectly paced. I think you're okay. That's what the problem with all of its sequels, right?
Sure.
They went on too long. But there's just a handful of movies that you're like, wow, there's nothing. Bravo. Yeah. This movie just 20, 30 minutes less. Again, the Dwight Yoakam character, pay him his money, but then in the editing suite, we're like, we got to cut around that.
Yeah.
And I think that would have saved them a lot of space. But anyway, yeah, that's fair.
So we heard what Emma had to say.
Yeah, so Lee said...
What did Lee say? Yeah.
Lee, it was slow. She definitely agreed it was slow going. She, again, liked everybody. She thought everybody's performances... She's an Ethan Hawke person, too. She likes Ethan, not the same, but she likes him, and she understands my inclination. She's a Gen Xer. She thought she was glad she watched it. She'd never heard of it. She'd never seen it before. It was, everybody's performances were fine. What she said, based on your 3 categories. So she says she would rate it as worth catching, not for completist only, but that she would call this like classic McConaughey, because she feels like when McConaughey just is this guy, when he rolls up and he's just McConaughey and himself all over the place, then this is like a classic McConaughey. Like she felt like this was as a film, worth catching. But she feels like this is just him. He like rolls up. He's charming. He's Texas. He's this guy. He's like, hey, guys want to be him. Women want to be with him. That guy. So she thought this was a classic McConaughey performance where he just sort of plays himself.
Interesting. And he's being classic McConaughey rather than this being a classic McConaughey movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he's portraying that guy. And it's like, and he is. And I agree with her. I'm going to put this in worth catching. This is not for completists only. I think it's, again, because it's not the worst movie ever. Yeah. And again, it's up to the guests. And Andrew, I respect and admire you, kind sir. I would not have put Amistad there either, but that's the joy of the show. I would have put it as worth catching to one time. I will never watch Amistad again.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But again, that's the beauty of it. I love that. So yeah, that was it. So she was like, it was fine, but she thought he was just playing himself. It's like this is Sahara. He's just playing him like he rolls up in Sahara and is like, hey, because that's kind of the way that most people encounter McConaughey is in what's coming up in the romantic comedy Kate Hudson era. Yeah, he's just playing himself over and over. Her favorite McConaughey movie, probably next to Sahara, is Failure to Launch.
Okay.
She fucking loves Failure to Launch. Like so much loves. And mostly because of Zoe and Riley. It's not, his name is not Riley, but that's who he is in the American Treasure movies. What the fuck?
Oh yeah,
Treasure movies. Justin Bartha. She loves him. Yeah. She loves him in the National Treasure movies, but he and Zoe in that movie just and obviously. Okay. And then you have Kathy Bates and Terry Bradshaw. So she loves that movie. Loves him. But again, he's just playing McConaughey. He's just always himself in every movie. Yeah. So anyway, so I agree. That's where I'm grading it. I'm putting it right there. I think it's worth catching. I don't think anybody should be embarrassed. It just didn't work. But it was maybe watch it at 1.5 speed.
Yeah. That's the way to leave it, I think.
Yeah.
Bro, thank you, mate.
All right. That was a film, and that was our discussion. So all that's left for me to say is a thank you to everyone that is continuing to listen and partake in this journey with me through the McConaissance. That was the Newton Boys. Up in a fortnight, I'm going to be joined by Tessa to discuss Eminem's performance as Ed in Ron Howard's Ed TV, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Cut.